Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're now marching towards Yom HaKippurim. Yom HaKippurim, a day, Kippurim, like Purim. We're marching to a world of Yom Kippur. We're marching to a world which is called Achas, the one. Achas B'Shana, the one day of the year, the special day. That one day of the year, Yom HaKodesh, the holy day. That one special, unique day of Lifnei Hashem Titaru, that we're going to become totally purified. A day of absolute purity, which is the entire day is a gift. It's a gift to become absolutely reconnected to who we really are. This is the essence of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur has to be understood as a backdrop, is that we have a body, and our body has desires, has instincts. It's essentially just like a sophisticated animal. An animal has basic instinctual desires: eat, sleep, procreate. We have those desires also. The difference between the body consciousness of the human, though, is that the body consciousness of the human has intellectual faculties which make those things more sophisticated. I never saw a polar bear whip up some 18-course menu with all the trimmings, unless it's something I didn't see yet. He'd let me know. That we take our instinctual desires very seriously. And we have very sophisticated ways of enjoying those instinctual desires. But it doesn't stop there. We take those instinctual desires and it goes into higher level realms. Realms of jealousy. Realms of selfishness, greed, lust, pride, things that I never saw. A colony of bumblebees make some diabolical Ponzi scheme. Unless this thing I haven't seen yet, you'll tell me. But the human being will do horrible things based on core animalistic desires, and will ruin other people around him, ruin himself. Will take those instinctual desires and just... So that's one part of us. By the way, that part of us came from the Nachash. Yes, came from the snake in Gan Eden. Those were the consciousness of the snake that got put into us after Adam and Chava ate from the tree. And those are elements that are very, very sensual, and they pull us in very, very strong ways, and they even convince us that that's what we want. And they'll blur the distinction of who I really am to that being what I am and what I want. But then there's another part of the story. That on Rosh Hashanah, we were given the gift of Vayipach Ba'ap of Nishmas Chaim, that God blew into us, into the human being, a soul. We were the shofar, and God blew the soul into us. That soul is our primary identity, but we've lost track of that because we became heavily involved with the world of our instincts, heavily involved with the world of the snake consciousness, the serpentine, reptilian snake brain. And it's sadly ruining our life. And it's taking over so much of humanity. The journey towards Yom Kippur is a 100% purification and refining that is not me. All of those instincts and all of those lustful desires and all of those negative patterns and selfishness and kinah, taiva, kavod, all of that, that's not me. That's all the serpentile energy. And that the journey towards Yom Kippur is I'm actually refining that energy off of me. I'm shedding the snakeskin. That I can come back to the true I. Back to the soul, back to the neshama. So much so that the journey on Yom Kippur itself, and we're going to learn the next few days, the journey of Yom Kippur and also the journey of Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur is also about this. All these days are about this. But intensifies the closer you get to Yom Kippur, is a refinement of shedding that non-identity and coming back to the true identity. And how many tefillahs do we daven on Yom Kippur? How many prayers do we daven on Yom Kippur? How many prayers do we daven on a regular day? 3. Shachar, Mincha, Ma'ariv. What about on Shabbos, Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh? 4. Musaf. What about Yom Kippur? 5. We add Ne'ilah. How many levels of my soul are there? It's 5 levels of the soul. There's the Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechidah. The Nefesh is the most coarse part of me. It's actually the interface between my spiritual self and my physical self. So the Nefesh has a lot of work that it needs. Most of us live in the world of the Nefesh. Now, in the world of Chassidus, we understand that these two souls, i.e. my animal soul, my animal desires, my animal instinctual, it's also called a soul, is totally separate than my godly soul. So there's a system on both sides. There's the godly soul and there's the animal soul. The problem is what happens is the animal soul goes like this and covers over my godly soul, that I stop identifying with it. And it convinces me that I've become this other person. It's like identity theft. It stole my consciousness and convinced me that that's who I am. I don't even know if it's a movie, but I always think that it is. And whenever I say this, people say, I think it's like some movie. It's like some guy, like he wakes up or something, and then he's like, I just want to go home. And he goes to his house, and he like looks in his house. It's like some suburban white picket fence, maybe a Tesla, if it's in 2024. And he's like, looks in, and he sees like his wife, but then he sees another man there. He sees his kids, and he's like, he goes to the door, and it's like, it says his name, like, Mr. Johnson, like the Johnsons. He knocks on the door, and he hears his wife like, someone's at the door, honey. He's like, what? And one of the kids open up, and he's like, oh, Sonny. And he's like, who are you? And then the father, he's like, who are you? He's like, I'm Mr. Johnson. You're not Mr. Johnson. I'm Mr. Johnson. It's like, no, you're not. This is my house. It's my Tesla. That's my kids. It's like, and he slams the door. Like, what was that all about? I don't know, some crazy guy. Mr. Johnson? Like, I don't know, this bunch of wackos nowadays out there, Good thing we got an alarm system. And the guy's like, but I'm Mr. Johnson. Am I? I don't even know anymore. Am I Mr. Johnson? The snake gets into your mind and convinces you that you're somebody else, that you lose track of who you even are. The way the Chovos HaLevavos says it is a very deep thing. He says the Yetzer Hara is your worst enemy, who's risen your internal ranks and become your closest advisor. Think about that well. He's your worst enemy that's risen your internal ranks to become your closest advisor, and you don't even know that he rose the ranks, and you're like, and you think that he's out there, he's like helping you. Wasn't that like Jafar? Am I making that up? Like Aladdin? Maybe something from Harry Potter. It's like he rose the ranks. It's like I thought he was like the good guy but the bad guy. It all comes from Torah. All these things. He rose the ranks, and you don't know who you are anymore because you think that you're your instincts. So much so that when you see an advertisement, it's like, I need an ice cream bar. I need that. I need that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I deserve it, actually. I went to the gym. There's at least like 0.1 grams of protein in an ice cream bar. Like, need protein, obviously. You know, I got to play 8 hours of video games because I read a study one time. I read a study one time that said, you know, like playing 8 hours of video games a day is actually good for your hand-eye coordination. And I got to work on that, you know, sometime in life. You know what I'm saying? Like, might be a pilot. So 8 hours of video games it is. I read a study. It's got to be true, right? And it rises up and it starts playing games with your mind. As you go through this journey towards Yom Kippur is a systematic process to start non-identification with that voice and then re-identification with the 5 levels of your neshama. And those are the 5 tefillos of Yom Kippur. What's with all this stuff, you know? Like, we do a lot of this on Yom Kippur. Oh, Shamanu. By the way, we sing it in major notes, by the way. Anybody who knows music, major notes are happy notes. Minor notes, minor. Minor is like not so happy, like a little bit melancholy. That's minor notes. So you would have thought that when you're like doing all this stuff, it should be like in minor. But in fact, it's in major. Hashamanu bagadanu. Why is it in happy major notes? Ah, da, 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 da. Those are all major notes. Ha, da, 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 da. Major. Ha, major notes. This is like, we're going to be judged by the king. Da, 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 da. Because all of it is a re-identification with my neshama. Is anything happier than that? Nothing. That's the ultimate happiness. To re-identify with the neshama. And each one of the tefillahs, which we're going to have to go through, is that re-identification. Yes, Yosef?
I was just thinking of like, what would be like the pop culture analogy for the story you gave? And I couldn't find one in my memory for like what it like reminds me of in terms of anything I've seen in terms of movies or TV shows. But isn't there a story of Shlomo Melech, how he like was seeking out wisdom and how like a demon like took over his identity and
yes, Ashmedai, the king of the demons. Be careful of the demons. The demons all come by being too identified with the snake consciousness. Snakes like other snakes. When a person's identified in that snake world, it attracts other stuff. When a person starts changing his identity to his godly identity, his soul, he starts attracting high-level vibes. Let's go through a little bit of the technology together. So what's this all about? Remember we said that the snake essentially put a mask, put a misidentification over who you truly are. What I'm doing on Yom Kippur is I am cracking away the shells. All of this is like a smashing of any of the shells that I identified as those things. What are you essentially saying? I stole, I spoke deceitfully, I said hurtful words to other people, I was jealous. I got lost in thinking that that's really who I was. That I'm a jealous person. That I'm somebody who says Lashon Hara. I thought that was me. I was confused. But now on this day, Yom HaKodesh, the one day, Achas B'Shana, the one day that we're given a gift, that I can now smash that misidentity away. That's why you do this vidui for every one of the tefillahs. I'm smashing away. So I begin taking them away ma'ariv. It's fixing my nefesh. I'm smashing all the misidentification of using my body consciousness, which is the lowest part of my soul, my real core instincts, using those core instincts for unhealthy things, whether it was unhealthy sexual things, Hashem Yirachim, unhealthy food, whatever I was doing, non-kosher things. And that's not me. I was misidentified. I'm removing that, and I'm unlocking my nefesh on my godly side, which is that this Bugatti, this stallion, should be used for godly things. That literally, the energy that's coursing and animating my body should be enlivened by my godly nefesh. And then I move to my ruach. That's the next tefillah. My ruach is my heart, and the heart is a very emotional place. That my heart is pulled after emotions, jealousy and lust, emotions that were not helping me, were not serving me. I was impatient. I was like making a fool of myself. I was angry. And I got so caught up in that, but that's not me. My emotions are all about being dedicated to holy things, loving my wife, loving God. And I'm smashing away the misidentification, and I'm cracking open my godly emotion. And then I get to my seichel, I get to my neshama. My neshama is a place that my mind I wasn't using my mind in the right way. I was using my mind to make all sorts of excuses, make all sorts of, one time there was a guy, there's always stories like this, and everyone has their stories of how they use their mind to create all sorts of crooked ways of thinking. Similar to the guy that's eating 15 ice cream bars because it has protein in it. No, I'm telling you, I saw a study, it's really, really important to have protein. Yeah, as I'm saying, it's obviously. There was a guy that was struggling with getting up in the morning and putting on his tefillin. And I understood that generally he was struggling with just making healthy boundaries. So it happened to be also a guy he was together with a girl before they were married. It wasn't a good situation. So he told me, he said, Rebbe, I have a way to fix my problem of waking up in the morning. Is that it's okay, because as long as I have a sleepover party with the girl, she makes sure I get up to put on tefillin and daven shachris. Right? Isn't that a great idea? So, there's other guys like, yeah, it sounds good to me, Rabbi. So, what have I done? Why have I used my mind that's so pure? Why have I used my mind? Maybe I even plunged my mind into many types of thinking that weren't exactly so clean and pure. And I threw my mind, this amazing faculty of using my mind, which knows right and wrong, and I put it into areas that weren't so good. So I'm cracking away all that misidentification. Our mind makes us do things for all sorts of honor. What about not being honest in business? That it pulls us in very serpentine ways. Remember, it says the snake was Arum. It says that the snake was the most Arum of all the creatures. So Arum literally means cunning. So the Targum says it's the most chakin, chachma. The snake has this very, he's like an advisor in there. He gives you very crooked svaras, but dresses it up like this is the best advice for you. How did I lose myself? What were the things the kind of thought processes I went through and the logical sequence that I believed was straight, but really when I peeled back the outside, it was so crooked, it was so serpentine. And everyone could fill in your own blanks on each of these levels, and I'm cracking away that identity. That's not me. And then comes your chai. The chai is even higher. The chai is the part even above you. That's your yarmulke. It's like above you. It's hovering above you. And that's like your primal life force. That's like the driving force that gets you out of bed in the morning. What's moving you? Now, usually we don't even talk about these higher parts of your soul. During the days of the week, we just have 3 tefillas. But the 4th level is like this deep moving energy. It's pushing you. It's driving you. It's giving you literally like the drive of life. I want to purify my core life force is for you, Hashem. How does a Jew wake up in the morning? The first word we say, Modeh. I wake up with so much gratitude that you put my soul back into me. And then comes Ne'ilah. Ne'ilah is the end. Ne'ilah, your Yechida cracks open. Yechida is the place of your soul which is unified with all humanity. That's the place that you intuitively feel absolute unity consciousness with everyone. Now, the challenge with some people is they touch this a little bit when they have a little bit of DMT, but then it goes away. And they don't know how to get it back unless they double the dose. And then they get hooked on feeling a little bit of Yechida, but they didn't earn it. So it could be a very challenging thing. In Yom Kippur, you earn your way to Yechida. You earn your way of touching such a unity consciousness to the point that you feel yourself dissolving into the oneness and you're aware of it. And at that point, what are we screaming out? What's the climax of Ne'ilah? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. One. That's the end. And at that point, is the Tekiah Gedolah. That's the oneness, like we mentioned, of the shofar, of going from the Tekiah into the Trua, and actually re-emerging into the Tekiah Gedolah, which will go on for eternity, re-emerging into the oneness. That opens up. In the pinnacle moments of Yom Kippur and Ne'ilah, many tzaddikim, they keep Ne'ilah, like for a long time. By Rebbe Chimar, Ne'ilah is like hours after people have finished. I want to tell you something. Just so you know, don't do this. Just so you know what some tzaddikim are doing, don't do this. The Amshin of a Rebbe, who is like Rebbe Tzimai and Rebbe Chimar's Rebbe, he's the tzaddik of the generation. The Amshin of a Rebbe, so he starts Ne'ilah like, his Ne'ilah Shmon Esrei, just Ne'ilah, he davened a 24-hour Shmon Esrei. And he wasn't eating. He just Ne'ilah. It's good to know that there's Jews in the world that are doing like things like that on our behalf. Don't do that. But it's good to know that there are those that are so plugged into that unity and that they're holding that unity, and essentially what they're doing with that unity is that they're spreading that unity. That doesn't end on Yom Kippur, it spills forth to the whole year. That the Achas B'Shana, that one day of the year, that you touch this absolute unity consciousness, that unity consciousness will then spread forth. So this is the tikkun. This is what we're doing all the days leading up to Yom Kippur. Now, why does Rosh Hashanah come before Yom Kippur? Everybody famously asks, it should be Yom Kippur first, we should be pure, and then we should be judged. So when you go deeper into the story of what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is, Rosh Hashanah is the day that you set your sight on what you want. You said it's the New Year of free will. Who are you? What do you want in this world? And you get clear, all I want is the relationship with the King. The journey then towards Yom Kippur is you're actually now going through a system of 100% identification with that. You touch it on Rosh Hashanah, but then you do the work of actually getting there, and the end of Yom Kippur, you're absolutely there. At that point, you don't just stay in just oneness. You don't stay with your kittel on and your talis. You know, you wear a talis the whole Yom Kippur. Some people don't sleep the whole Yom Kippur. Probably good to sleep. You don't want to fall asleep during the day. The whole day, they're just in the talis. After that moment of absolute unity, you say that the unity doesn't just remain outside the world. The unity comes into the world. You build your sukkah. That's what the halacha is, that on Motzi Yom Kippur, you're supposed to build your sukkah. At least do something. Put something up. I'm inviting the guys right after Yom Kippur to come to my house to help build the sukkah, because we've got a lot of work to do. It's a big sukkah. The siyata d'shmaya is that you come now back into this world, and you're showing that the unity is not just a unity above the world, it's a unity that comes into this world. And we party with God for 7 days. We take earthen objects, our Daled Minim, and we unify them, and we're holding this world, and we're saying this world is also part of the unity. So in review, Yom Kippur begins with an understanding that the Nachash, the snake, took over our consciousness, and we've been lost in this throughout the year, and we're going through a systematic re-identification with our soul, the V'yipach ba'apav nishmas chaim, the soul that God blew into us, and that through the 5 tefillahs of Yom Kippur, we're systematically purifying and re-identifying with every one of those levels of our soul until we're absolutely in unity consciousness. And then we take that absolute unity consciousness and we bring it into this world. And Yom Kippur is the greatest gift. It's a gift, and that's why you feel so good after Yom Kippur. You just feel the gift of absolute purity. That's the purity. The purity is that you're now re-identified with your soul. That is the purity. You should be zoicha, my friends. We're going to talk tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, about why these 5 inuyim, the 5 things that we don't do on Yom Kippur, why this is exactly everything we're talking about, and specifically we don't do those things on Yom Kippur, and why specifically we notice on Purim that Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim. We seem to be involved in those things. And we're going to explain why on Yom Kippur we're not involved in eating and drinking and self-anointing and all sorts of things like that. We'll talk about why we don't do those things on Yom Kippur. And we should be zoicha mamish once and for all that the nachash hakadmoni will be removed, the consciousness of the snake and that identity will be removed from us and from humanity. And we'll see the Kohen Gadol go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, into the Holy of Holies, and then emerge from the Holy of Holies. And we saw the face of the Kohen Gadol, Mara HaKohen, the Mara, we see the face of the Kohen Gadol. We saw a human being that was shining with the light of the Shekhinah, the light of absolute unity consciousness, the place going in where creation is emerging from that unity spot of the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy of Holies. We should be zoicha mamish to that absolute purity of lifnei Hashem tit'aru, zarakti aleichem mayim tahorim, that the hartem Hashem is going to sprinkle upon us the waters of purity, that we're going to be absolutely identified with our neshama, and in the place of our neshama we're all one, we're all unified. We're going to live with that unity consciousness in this world, and we're going to party and bring humanity together into the Sukkot of the Leviathan, the great, great party of the giant Leviathan. It's going to be a ganze sushi suda, the Leviathan, the siyata d'shmaya. Should be zoicha mamish to mishit tzidkeinu b'mhira v'yamin. Amen. Amen. Kol Tov.